What's up, ladies and gents? Welcome to the Podonthego show. I'm your host, Raz, and welcome to the show. Hopefully the music wasn't too loud. All right, but we'll figure it out as we go. So today, to continue the theme of new beginnings, I have a great guest, my best friend, not best friend, but one of my best friends is what I'm about to say.
What?
Yeah. I'll show it in a second. One of my best friends. I got a lot of them. Two of them. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about newer beginnings with my buddy Tyler Edic. And Tyler is the... Let me see if I can get him up on screen. I need a producer. All right. Tyler Edic is the owner of TylerEdic.com, CreateMarketing.com, and Savannah Real Estate Video. He produces some of the best videos. He works for, he's worked for, who have you worked for? David Letterman in the past. He does amazing real estate videos and all throughout Savannah. He is a real estate investor. And here we go. I'll just show you now. Yeah. So you've done a lot of cool stuff, man. And I always admire your work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. So recently you quit your 9-to-5 and you went out on your own and started your own thing. Again, you've done it in the past, but you took some time off and just focused on working and building your skill set and meeting people in Savannah and moving to a new city. So how does it feel to be the new Tyler Edic, out on your own now?
Yeah. Let's see. I'm like 3.5 weeks into it, something like that. But it's been awesome so far. Yeah, I was working just a regular stable job as a full-time videographer, which is great, and which is what a lot of people that I went to school with and that are in videography, that's like the most they could ever ask for, is to have like a stable, decent paying job doing video. So to some people, it's pretty crazy to take the leap and go out on my own, but for me, it was kind of just a matter of time. And when I was doing this the first time, working kind of through grad school, even though I basically lived off loans, but my first time, my first little bout of entrepreneurship was part-time, and I was just kind of getting my feet wet, but I knew I didn't want to lay my roots down in New York because it's just too cold there. And I didn't want to commit to getting to know the business community and and establishing a business and building a client base and a network. And so it wasn't until after I had been in Savannah a couple of years where I got to know a lot of the players in town and have kind of a team of other videographers and yourself with the podcasting as well as video production, that I was actually finally ready, where I had the client base and the confidence and had saved up enough money to take the leap of faith. And so far it's been good.
Yeah. I like the way you did it. I like how because I'm the opposite. I just jump in. I don't really think about finances. I'm not afraid to take a leap. My wife hates that, but it's worked out for me so far. But I do like the way you did it. You paid off the vast majority of debt, if not all of it. You had clients lined up before you jumped. So like, what was the mindset to doing it that way rather than just listening to what experts say and taking the leap?
Well, I definitely didn't pay off all my debt. That's for sure. I still have a lot of student loans to get through, but I started by just creating a spreadsheet of all the things I would need. So that included like I already had a decent computer workstation, thankfully, but a new camera. I knew I need a gimbal for walkthrough videos. I knew I need a drone. I knew I need certain lenses, but I went on like the lean startup model, and what's the bare minimum I need. And then you had already we had the Podbox 1 together, and then we moved over to the Podbox 2.
Yep.
And so we were kind of established here, which you were the one that took the leap of faith on getting us a dedicated workspace.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you left, I thought, well, it doesn't really make sense to have a a rent payment month to month starting out when I don't have business. But it will make sense in like 3 months or whatever, or 4 months when I'm making money. So I can
Yeah.
just eat the cost of rent for a couple months, and then, versus giving it up and having to move everything out just so I can move back in when I'm actually cash flowing. So that was like a little bit of a risk, and but it's worked out so far. I mean, I've been profitable already in January and February.
Awesome.
So the next step is figuring out how to scale.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to scale when you have you know, when you offer a service, especially like videography. So it's kind of hard to scale. It's not impossible, but it's not like having an app that you just
It
need more users and marketing dollars. You know.
totally. It's the first. I mean, it's pretty self evident. Like eventually I'll need an editor or editors and
Hmm.
a second shooter, another producer as well.
Yeah.
And then you and I are pretty like minded, so it'd be great to have like either an executive account manager or
Hmm.
like a business administrator or somebody to just basically dot all the I's and cross the T's.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I need that as well. I'm working towards it.
yeah.
Uh. Yeah. So yeah, and you mentioned that I took the risk for Podbacks One, but you also helped a lot with it. You put a lot of time and effort into building it up.
Sweat equity.
A lot of sweat equity. Yeah, yeah. Um, so recently you relaunched the Creative Truth podcast, one we started together. What, 2 years ago now?
Yeah, coming up
Two
on
years,
2 years.
yeah, 2 years ago, and you relaunched it because we slacked off. I slacked off and stopped producing and editing the shows we're putting them out. But I also had a third child, and it drove me crazy for a little while. Anyway, so you recently relaunched it, and you're doing interviews now with creative professionals from right now all over Savannah, but really all over the world because you've interviewed, some of your friends and associates from all over the nation, right?
Yeah, I had one guest on in San Francisco. I have a guest next week from San Diego. I have a friend in Fort Wayne, Indiana that's coming on, Denver, Colorado, Charlotte, yourself.
Nice. Yeah.
Um, and then I have some people from Atlanta, and then a bunch of artists and creative entrepreneurs from Savannah as well. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. And I know I've mentioned it to you, but for the before I even knew what a podcast was, I mean, I had heard of them, but I never listened to one.
Mm-hmm.
I had this idea of starting a blog called Conversations with Creatives, and I
Mm-hmm.
had actually conducted an interview with my friend Alex in San Diego back in 2015, and I had recorded the audio via phone, and then I was going to transcribe it, and there was no Temi back then, so or if there was, like AI was not what it is now.
Right.
And so I was just like, I'm going to have to transcribe this hour-long phone call, and that sounds miserable. So I just dropped the project. And so then when I met you and we were talking about the creative truth, I was like, oh, I could just record the phone call and then put that up because people will listen.
Yep.
It's a podcast. So
Yep.
so yeah, it's been awesome. It's been awesome learning from you and getting to know what kind of works and the longer form, content.
Mm-hmm.
People have the attention span despite the popular belief. And I then helped launch a podcast for my former employer, Visit Savannah, about Savannah, Georgia. It's called Savannah, Georgia, Anything But Ordinary.
Nice.
And actually they've contracted me to continue on producing that podcast. So I have I produced that one. I'm not the host, and then I produce and I'm the host of the Creative Truth. But you are still the other half of the Creative Truth whenever you're available. And your episode just dropped. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I saw
Creative
it.
Truth is it's been fun. It's been I haven't made any money there yet, but it's been fun.
Yeah. It'll come. It'll come. So what have you learned from launching it and doing all the editing and production and interviewing yourself?
So I know that in one of the last, so I have 6 episodes done and edited and loaded and ready to release. And I know in one of them, one of my guests looks at their phone and they lose their train of thought.
Mm.
And I literally have tried to listen to all of them start to finish, and I can't find it. So,
Mm.
so I somewhere in one of the upcoming episodes, my guest loses their train of thought, and I was supposed to edit it out, and I say like, "Yeah, I'll edit this out," and then I'm not going to. It's just going to be in there. So, but my approach is, since I'm not making money, I'm just trying to streamline it as much as possible, and definitely at first what I was doing was batching my production, which is advice from a guy that we met through the Savannah Podcast Network,
Yeah.
Henrik Tagior.
Yep.
Yep. And so shout out Henrik if you're watching. And so that was really good because I was able to crank out a lot of episodes. But something I noticed, and I wouldn't have known this prior to trying it, is by my third interview of the day, I was a little burnt out on just talking and having questions ready to go and lined up and just being like presentable. So in that scenario, that particular episode, my energy level is a little down. And so learning how to kind of, I mean, sometimes you have to fake it and put it on. That's showbiz, baby. But but I think what I'm going to do is just space out my recordings a little bit more, and then the post production I need to do more work on, but mostly in the back end of distribution and marketing materials. Like I'm going to pull clips and create audiograms and
Mm-hmm.
little like teaser clips and still graphics with quotes and stuff. And that stuff all takes time. So
Yeah.
I want to improve more, but rather than make it perfect, I'm just trying to get it up and get it out there.
Yep.
So
Yeah. And that's the goal, man. Just to do it. You know, a lot of times it's more so about consistency than the actual quality. Honestly.
yeah.
Yeah. And you talked about like being burnt out after batching a bunch of episodes and shows and stuff like that. One tip that I have is to like just get moving before the show. Like even before this episode, I walked / ran a mile on a treadmill, and then there's been other episodes where I have a big guest or it's somebody I'm excited about, and I'll make sure I do some push-ups or some sit-ups or just jumping jacks or something just to get the blood flowing. That way you're not so drained and your body, is more attentive. You know. So
Yeah, that's something I need to get better about. Is like just getting, because I'll sit at my desk for like 8 hours.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
I need to get up every 2 hours and do a little lap around outside.
least, yeah.
That's really good advice. Yeah.
That even little things, like getting a good night's sleep the night before if you can, if possible, or drinking enough water the night before. Make sure you're hydrated. All that stuff helps the brain function a little bit better, and you're able to stay focused during an interview, especially a long form interview where it's like an hour long or more. 45 minutes to an hour. You want to make sure that you're at least in the zone, and those are just things that I do. Not eating a heavy breakfast or super heavy lunch, so you don't have the itis, dozing off beforehand. It's all that stuff. Yeah. So what are you relaunched the podcast? What are your goals with it? What do you hope comes from it?
Well, I'm really kind of falling in love with the podcasting business because, I mean, it is videography, but the thing is, as a host, you don't have to be the expert on a subject matter. Yeah. You're just an expert on extracting information from people that are the expert in their subject matter. So, to benefit others and to share the knowledge that we all have within us. And a lot of people, we talk about this all the time. People love to talk about themselves. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm good at, you and I both have the gift of gab, and we can make conversation with anyone. And I'm just a genuinely curious person. I'm a lifelong learner, and I know a little about a lot, which is part of what makes it easy to talk to people. Yep. I'm not a car guy, but I can be like, oh yeah, my family had a 54 Chevy, and like it wasn't until 52 that they started curving the glass or whatever. Yeah. And like all the car guys like get their dad boner and like, oh yeah. So anyway, with guests, it's like my skill set is just getting them to open up and talk, and doing that, I've really been enjoying telling these stories through my lens of the world, and talking about why some things that you might not consider as creative careers are actually took a creative route and a creative mindset to get there, because there's so many ways. Even the term photographer could mean so many things. Like it could be a real estate photographer like me, or a landscape photographer, portrait photographer, wedding photographer, lifestyle, product. I mean, and all of those have architectural is different than real estate. Those are both buildings, but it's a different business practice altogether.
Yep.
So people think, oh, I want to be a photographer. It's like the creative truth is about helping people niche down and find success early on, so they're not having to do everything I had to do to reach a certain level of success, or at least streamline that process, speed it up, and that's going for like all different career paths. So you can like. I'm in love with it, and with podcasting, and would like to make money and get paid to, not get rich, but just make enough money to cover the costs and my time, and just to be able to tell more stories. And I don't want to say like make it like I'm not worried about getting regionally or on the internet famous. That's not the goal. It's just to get paid enough to justify the time I spend talking to people and telling their story. And like, I'm definitely been learning a lot about cross promoting. So getting on other people's podcasts is a goal of mine. And just continue to grow it and actually figure out if there is an audience for this, like who they are, and figure out how to engage with them. And I would love to hear from somebody that, like, I listened to your episode of The Creative Truth, and that helped me like take the next step towards my creative career, my creative pursuit. Like that would be the ultimate affirmation that it's like a valuable pursuit.
Yeah. I've gotten that, not a lot, because I always stop before I get it while I'm doing it. But so anyway, my first podcast was a real estate podcast, the New Agent Edge, and probably, I guess when it had to be 5 years later, somebody reached out to me, and said how it really helped them and inspired them to keep going. And I thought that was pretty cool. It definitely made me feel good about something, that somebody actually listened to it and it actually helped somebody. So I totally agree. That's the one thing I remember. Yeah. Luckily, I didn't have enough listens that, trolls came in and told me a whole bunch of negative stuff, but I did get the one positive review. Yeah.
Well, the people that listen to podcasts are podcast fans, and if they don't like it, they're not going to commit to spending an hour on it. So they'll just like find the next thing, So I feel like it's a little more constructive of a community than YouTube, like all the little 12-year-olds dropping comments and just being very negative, like that kind of thing.
Right.
But I was going to say too that the posterity of it is pretty cool, a pretty cool factor, because I'll actually be listening to a podcast about Savannah that was recording, 3 or 4 years ago, and it's like scrolling through the names, and it's like, oh, Raz Misher. I didn't know this podcast existed. 2, I didn't know you were a guest, and so I listened to you on it was the Savannah Morning News.
Difference Makers.
Yes, I listened to your episode of Difference Makers, and you recorded that back when you had just moved to Savannah, and so it's interesting to hear where you were at then and where you are at now. And yeah. I mean, you only had 2 kids at the time, so you mentioned that, and Savannah Business Showcase has transformed into the Razcast, and so it was like, actually, I think it was recorded like a month before we met, so it's like. Just little baby Raz. It's cool though. It's cool that lives on in perpetuity, and it's kind of like benchmarking your life a little bit.
Yeah, and as I change and become more conservative over life, I'll be able to look back at that and be like, wow, look at that little liberal guy there.
That's right.
Yeah, just joking. Um, so yeah, so I think that's it, man. Yeah, I just like to do these Pod on the Go shows short, so we'll keep it short and sweet. How can people reach you? What's the best way for people to reach you if they want help?
So you mentioned TylerEdic.com. That's kind of like the catch-all. There's nothing on there other than links to all my other websites, and but I'm on like all social media, and you can find the Creative Truth on every major podcast platform and YouTube as well. That comes out every Tuesday morning. And yeah, you feel free to connect with me. I'm here to answer questions if you know somebody that'd be a good guest on the show, or you yourself are a creative professional or need advice, I'm here to help. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Cool, man. Yeah, nah. Thanks for doing this last minute. I asked you. No, we were gonna record it Monday, had some technical difficulties, and then we're like, yeah, let's do it Friday. Let's do it Thursday. So, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it live. Let's, it's gonna be better that way.
Yeah.
It's gonna be easier.
It is definitely
Yeah.
a lot easier. Yeah, I don't have to go back and edit,
hmm
which is the reason I'm doing a daily show now, but I'm just live streaming it because if I had to
I love
record
it.
and edit it, it's not gonna happen. You know.
Yeah, and you can build an audience that way too,
hmm
because people that are watching it like as it happens. And
Yep. Yep. Okay. All right. Well, cool, man. Thank you everybody for watching. I'm Raz, the owner of Pod on the Go. If you want to find a podcast studio near you, you can go to podonthego.com. If you want help with producing or launching a podcast, you can go to you can send me an email at info@podonthego.com, and we'll work something out. So thank you guys for watching, and we will talk to you